Oppo and OnePlus. So this was big news that hit. Oppo is now taking OnePlus back into its grip. So last week, OnePlus CEO Pete Lau said in a forum post that the company will further integrate with Oppo, but didn't elaborate on how that would work in practice, right? But obviously, our man Evan Blass, leaker, has obtained a document that serves as talking points memo for use by OnePlus PR, right? Now, it explains the integration in more plainer terms. So we've got, I quote, with the integration, OnePlus becomes a brand within Oppo. However, will continue to function as an independent entity. The memo also says that Lau's role as Chief Product Officer at Oppo will make him responsible for product strategies for both Oppo and OnePlus. So the memo kind of goes on here. It will basically allow Oppo and OnePlus to be more efficient with their operations. You've already got merged R&D departments and things like that. So they're kind of thinking of it as an overall brand, having these together. Now, Oppo and OnePlus, obviously, for a long time, everybody kind of knows that they're partner companies, and we've had so many devices that look so similar, right? You just kind of know that, okay, this is essentially an Oppo phone. I think especially was it the OnePlus 5, I believe, and the Oppo R15, something like that. I can't
the R15. The R15 was one where we went like, yep, R15. Yep. When the OnePlus was announced, we were like, yeah, that's the R15 right there.
Exactly. So you just have such similar products. Even the OnePlus 9 series, if you kind of look at the camera arrangement and things like that, it really does remind you of the Oppo, which I've got it somewhere here in my collection. But one of the recent Oppo, there's so many phones. Oppo's like they do release so many great phones, and there's so much variety there, but like trying to remember all of them off by heart is sometimes difficult. But
Reno, maybe
the Reno
6. No, 5.
I think it was the 5, the Reno 5. Yeah. So if you kind of look at how the camera module is kind of arranged now, that was kind of exclusive to India. So it wasn't something that was really in other regions. But then if you look at the sort of design and the layout, it kind of does translate over quite a bit to the OnePlus. So there was clearly a lot of that sharing happening anyway. But now this is going to be more kind of official, right? Now the one point I do want to mention is I kind of see, from a company side of things, why they're doing this. It kind of makes sense. But also, it's no longer the case where I'd say if we rewind 3 or 4 years ago, you'd have something. We mentioned the R15 Pro that had Color OS, and then we had the OnePlus, which had Oxygen OS, and that was a night and day difference at that time, right? So Color OS was very much catered to Asian markets, so there was a lot going on there. And I think for more Western markets, Oxygen OS really did kind of was more suitable, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Now this kind of started changing because, especially with Color OS 11. So I actually did a video in partnership with Oppo, and I kind of covered some of the features on Color OS 11. And as soon as that came in, that was like a complete refresh, right? And then I found that Color OS was much cleaner. The whole UI was much cleaner. You had lots of customizations, but generally the theme was very, smooth, snappy. And it kind of seems like they took a lot of cues from Oxygen OS, from, their partner company, which is OnePlus. And they kind of integrated a lot of this into the Color OS system. And, I can now comfortably use Color OS on a smartphone and not think okay, I need to change. Whereas this wasn't fully the case, a few years ago. So I kind of see that these are coming closer and closer. So it's kind of, it makes sense to kind of just, bring them in now.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does. And so to me, this is a cost-cutting measure to some degree. This is also a leveraging measure. I mean, OnePlus just has a partnership with Hasselblad. And I would not be surprised that Oppo would leverage that partnership as well to some degree. I'm not saying that it's fully over. Maybe they may even add more to that. There's also the manufacturing leverage that OnePlus can tap into because Oppo is a much bigger brand in being quicker in manufacturing, getting some of the things they want to do. Even though, yeah, we always see the designs kind of look similar, but again, when you start streamlining these processes, and when you have, Mr. Lau over at Oppo, who is now heading product there, then that means that the product synergy becomes more distinct, and there's a clear difference and a clear similarities at the same time. Because now that you have the same person in two lengths, you can go, okay, Oppo's gonna look like this, OnePlus gonna look like this, but we can still build it together because there's still many things that are key. Because now we're using the same camera lenses, those things become more finite. You can have different designs, but if your lenses now become the same, if your battery sizes are the same, you can design it as different as you want. It's still the same process, because now literally you're using same core parts altogether. It's kind of like the M1 process for Apple now. M1 literally is making that process for Apple so much more effective that you can design whatever you want to with a Apple product, as long as it just fits a certain size chassis to fit an M1. It doesn't matter.
No, that's interesting. So, I mean, what do you think it's going to mean for the customer? Is it going to really mean much for the customer? Like, so an end user who doesn't know about all of the politics behind the scenes, they're going to buy a phone. Is it going to mean anything different for them, apart from hopefully reductions in price potentially because of the more efficient process?
I mean, you could. I mean, but that's a key thing for the end user, right? So, for instance, with Oppo, Oppo has no serious foothold in the Western markets, especially the US market, at least at least for what I know. So, if you're going to leverage that with OnePlus, and you can now drive that OnePlus price to now combat Samsung properly, and also you want to, again, there is now a power vacuum with the lack of LG. There is no number two or even three clear winner in Android, right? There is no Huawei, and LG's out of the market. So there is no clear number two or three. Now, this is a great opportunity to leverage yourself on two different markets with two different devices that you have a synergistic build with, that you can go, you know what, we may not need to get into the US market heavily, but we've got OnePlus to really do that for us. And because we still have the same key DNA, we can still carry that over into the Western market, in our Eastern markets as well. And I think it's a good play. I think it's a good, sensible play, as long as, they do the right things,
Okay. So here's a prediction. All right, I'm saying this right now. Here's just a prediction. This is just a hunch that I've got, right? Because if we look at Realme, which is essentially, again, a sub-brand of Oppo, right? They're making some seriously competitive devices, right? If you look at the software, it's called Realme UI, okay, which is essentially ColorOS with a different name. Because essentially the whole fundamental system and the way everything works and where everything is and all the customizations, all of the different icons, all of that, it's all ColorOS, right? But it's called Realme UI. I think eventually Oxygen OS will become similar to that, where it will be ColorOS at its core. So it will just be ColorOS, but it will just be called Oxygen OS. But essentially, it's going to be the same thing as ColorOS. I hope you enjoyed that clip. If you want to hear the full podcast episode, then that will be linked down below. And if you want to see more clips like this, then be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss them. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSaf Speaks, and I'll see you next time.